my talk is working remotely but not lonely. So the focus is on just generally talking about culture topics during a remote work situation. Because I mean, the situation that I came from, where I came up with this talk, was unrelated to coronavirus. But I guess right now this is even more of an issue, right? Like not being lonely and feeling connected to your team even when you cannot meet them. So I want to talk to you about remote team building, workshops, and work hacks. And yeah, I work for Grafana Labs. We build open source software like Grafana. You can see a Grafana screenshot right there. So some of you might know Grafana. I work at the company that makes Grafana. And what's interesting about Grafana Labs is we are post-geographic, at least that's what we call ourselves. We are not fully remote, but remote first. We have a distributed team in, I'm just seeing that right now, I think it's over 25 countries. We are still growing, continuously hiring people even in coronavirus times. So yeah, I think 95% of my colleagues work completely from home, like me. So everything that I'm going to talk about to you starting from now is just from everyday work experience. But before I get into that, I want to start with all of you. I think most of you probably have remote experience because home office is just working remotely. It's the same thing. So I would like to get a little bit of input from you, and hopefully we can do this through the chat functionality. We'll see how well this works. So I want to do a little brainstorming with you. So this is like a sort of mini remote workshop that we're doing here right now. Imagine you are working remotely. I would like you to think of or write down 3 things that happen. And before you start writing them in the chat, like I will time you. You can have 2 minutes. Like I have my time timer here, and I will give you 2 minutes to think of stuff. And I would like you to come up with one good thing, one thing that is much better at home than working in an office, one bad thing, one thing that is not as great, and one ugly thing, like something that goes completely wrong. I'm not sure whether you've seen any of these social media things about people failing at home office because they were in the video conference and their partner walked behind them naked or something like that. Like I want to hear all of the dirt. Give me all the dirt, especially the corona dirt. And then in 2 minutes, we will just collect all of your answers in the chat. I will put them in this presentation live and we'll see what you have experienced. So 2 minutes for you. Start thinking now. No pressure. As you can see, like you have your similar experiences about remote work. And yeah, before we go into what my company says about that, I would like to look at the science of working remotely because there are some facts about that. Firstly, why do we even leave the house for work? The thing that happened was the Industrial Revolution and factories started being built. Before that, I'm not sure if you know much about history. I don't really, but I guess we all know that most people worked at home, right? Farmers had their work right at home, and craftsmen had their work right at home. If you weren't building a house, which was somewhere else, you would probably build stuff in your own workshop. So we only have been leaving the house for work for about 200 years. And since then, a lot has changed. So I think it's a legitimate point in time to question whether leaving the house for work should still be the norm. And then we also have the point that office space in big cities is very expensive. You can see a little graph here, and I just wanted to point out Frankfurt, which at least 2016, it was 17th in the list. I think by now it got probably, it's probably less expensive than Seoul or something, but it's still pretty expensive, I think. And then there are some arguments that come with that. For example, the CTO and founder of Honeycomb Charity Majors, has an article about this topic where she says that her company is in San Francisco, and if she only hired people from San Francisco, she would limit hiring to the fortunate few who have already won the Bay Area housing lottery. So, of course, you limit your available pool of recruitees and co-workers to the people who live near you. And if you live in an expensive area, then that's not really fair, and you're not giving people the same chance to work at your company. So there's like really a societal aspect in here as well. And then there was a study with a Chinese travel agency where they randomly picked half of their employees and sent them to work from home for 9 months. However, they let them go to the office for 1 day per week just to sync with the manager. So it wasn't fully remote, but like 80% remote. And it was a Stanford professor who did the study with them. And one of the results was that work from home employees work a true full shift or more in extra productivity. Mind you, however, this is not Corona home office. This is like regular home office where the kids are not at home, where you have peace and quiet and can just do your work, right? This is not my neighbors are drilling and my kids are playing behind me home office. But basically, his results were that you will work 1 extra day, even though you're working the same amount of time if you work from home, which is pretty crazy. And then also interesting, after they created this opportunity to work from home, the quit rates for the company dropped by 50%. So only half as many people quit as before they had the work from home opportunity. So I think that's significant. And then of course there's still the bad and the ugly. I must say, like you didn't have that many bad and ugly experiences. Most of the things that you said were about socializing and staying in the loop about what was going on. I think the ugly was mostly about technology. I guess that's good. So you're all quite interested in remote work and positive about it because you don't have that many points against it. That's great. Let's see what we can maybe do to make that better. How can we make remote work work? What can you learn from my experience? So there are some work hacks. The most important thing is obviously to make your workflows remote first. So cover the remote situation first and then the real life situation. But of course, in Corona times, that's probably a given now. Like everyone had to sort of immediately switch to that way of working. So maybe that's covered. We'll see later in the Q&A whether you have questions about this. One thing that one of my colleagues, Diana, said is that for her, hopping on video chat has replaced swinging past someone's desk. So these interim help things, they can still happen. Like just because you're not in the same room, it doesn't mean that you can tell a person, hey, can you quickly help me with this and that thing? Can we just quickly jump on a video chat? I do this all the time. Maybe not every day, 3 times, but definitely several times a week, almost every day. I jump on at least one video chat with a colleague to kind of interim manage or talk about something on the spot instead of having a scheduled appointment for it. So there is nothing bad about just doing that. And then some things that we talked about internally, I asked some of my teammates about these questions. They say that we have a high level of transparency because we have team and company-wide meetings, and all of our meetings are also recorded. So you can watch them asynchronously. I thought I could highlight this, but I cannot. It's too bad. Then we also have daily stand-ups, so you can talk about small struggles in your daily stand-ups and ask quick questions, and maybe like set up these interim help calls. Then we're using the holy trinity of GitHub, Slack, and Google Drive. I guess probably all of you use some sort of messenger and some sort of cloud file sharing system. And then I guess GitHub is sort of our project management tool, depending on what work you do. It might be, I don't know, some Atlassian, Jira, whatever solution, or Zendesk, or I don't know what, but you'll know what I mean. And what's good in our company is that all of our meetings, or almost all of our meetings, are voluntary, but you can join all of them. So if I want to know what's happening with the sales team, I just go to the sales weekly. If I want to know what's happening in the, I don't know, plugins team, I go to their weekly. And I can also just watch their recordings afterwards if I cannot make it. And what we also do is pair programming via Google Meet. Some bad things also happen with us. We still have problems with documentation. A lot of people are working simultaneously, and you cannot always just document everything in ways that everybody will find it. So that's an issue. And then the larger the project group is, the harder it is to organize people. Sometimes you have the waiting for replies or waiting for PR reviews. Of course, like if you're trying to get interim help, but the person you're trying to reach is AFK or like do not disturb mode, you will write her message and then you have to wait for, I don't know, an hour, 3 hours a day. And that will suck, of course. Usually that doesn't happen to me. So I guess it's also a cultural thing of making sure that people, when they're available on Slack, they're available and they will reply, but that's really an individual thing that you have to solve in your company, I guess. And then of course the issue is balance between synchronous and asynchronous communication. Sometimes it's hard to gauge, is it cool if I just drop a line on Slack? Should we do a call on this? Do we even need a call on this? Maybe this call is a waste of time. I don't know, this sort of stuff. And ugly things with us internally are, for example, about our products. Depending on who you ask in our company, you get different answers about what their names are. And some inexperienced team members may lack guidance and feel lost just because there's so many people. And if you don't reach out, then no one will sort of reach out to you if you have bad luck. I guess with us in our company, we're trying really hard during onboarding to make people feel welcome enough that they will reach out by themselves. But of course, like it's a personality thing too. Yeah. So that's where team building comes in, because this is really important to have team spirit be palpable and have the connections between your people be strong, even with a distributed workforce. And for that, Mark Zuckerberg said something about how social media generally works. And he says that the core point of social media is for people to express empathy, which means that in everything that we do in these, I don't know, remote, non-personal virtual interactions, we really want to express empathy and to just build understanding with each other, right? So that's also why using memes and emoji is the best idea. Just use them, use too many of them, it's all good. And better write a longer message than a shorter one, just to make sure that people understand you, and also add emojis so that people know, like, are you serious? Is this a joke? Are you trying to be funny? Are you cool? Are you being passive aggressive, right? You know, people want to know these sort of things. The part that you cannot express if you just have words with no other connotations. So for example, when we onboard a new person, this is an example of my new colleague Milan, who joined the SRE team. And then you can see that most people will send a friendly welcome message. They will send an animated GIF. And that was a great experience for me on my first day, just logging in on Slack for the first time and feeling already a warm welcome and feeling people get excited for you to join the company. So that's really a nice and quick thing that you can do to have great team building from the start, right? And other than that, other than these warm welcome messages that I already mentioned, we also have an onboarding buddy, so that in the beginning you have someone who you know you can talk to, and you can ask questions without feeling stupid. Then of course memes and GIFs are very important. Oops. Why is my email popping up now even though I turned off my notifications? That is evil. Evil. Then also very important, making jokes in every video call. So the first, I don't know, 3 minutes or so in every video call we have with the company are reserved for small talk, talking about the weather or how you're feeling or what's new in your city. Right now, it's always Corona updates, but that's cool. So I know a lot of what coronavirus is like in other European cities. That's very interesting. Then, of course, you can go to conferences to hang with teammates. So this sort of real life interaction, we try to build it through opportunities where you can also get further training and development. We have video lunches. That's a great thing that you should all do. Talk to each other and have lunch together via video call. Then we also have a Slack bot that matches you with random people so that you can have video lunches or tea with them virtually and just get to know them. We have weekly one-on-ones with our direct managers. So my manager talks to me for 30 minutes every week, which I think is awesome. I didn't have that in any other job before this one. And also we have our own conference where you can theoretically meet people and team build in real life there. Yeah. Some bad things, I don't have an ugly for the team building here either because I feel it works pretty well. So if you actually want to meet in real life, you have to have extra organization and travel. Right now, it's probably not even possible. Most countries have travel bans now. So right now is the worst possible time to do actual real life team building. So that's a bit unfortunate. And then some of you might know that sometimes there is a hurdle of asking people for a video call. You will think, oh, people are busy. And that's why you don't want to like chat them up on camera or disturb them. So you just send them a chat message and are like, oh, yeah, reply to this whenever, but that might cut something off of the actual interpersonal interaction, right? And then, at least in our company, some people do have an office option and others don't. I know that some people I know still go to an actual office to work. And I mean, that's right now, probably that's a personal decision more or less to like whether you want to risk your health or not. But still socially, if you are single and live far away from your parents and friends and don't have the opportunity to go to an office now, you might get really lonely. So I think this meetup is great to maybe get some input, feel less lonely. And you can try to do the same sort of thing at home or in your company with other people just to stop the loneliness from happening. But of course, in real life, that's even better. And then time zones can also make it hard. I think probably most of the people here, judging from your names, are from an EU time zone. But yeah, in my company, that's not really just the EU time zone. And sometimes I have to have evening calls. And if I don't want to have evening calls, there are just some coworkers that I can never talk to because we don't have any overlap in our work time zones. Yeah. Then the third topic that I want to talk about, because it's a personal pet peeve of mine, is remote workshops. I have facilitated quite a number, and I just have some quick pro tips on how you can make your remote workshop a success if you're trying to do one. So if you have a workshop remotely, usually people type stuff, right? So results are automatically documented and legible. I'm not sure whether any of you have ever had a post-it workshop or whiteboarding session. And then afterwards you looked at the photos and were like, oh, what did he or she write there? I cannot read that. And then you don't know what happened in the workshop because the handwriting is not legible. So that's actually a big thing that can save you some frustrations. Then you save on waste because you don't have post-it waste or poster waste. Also nice about virtual workshops is that in Google Slides or PowerPoint, stuff like that, usually have free downloadables for canvases and materials. You can save costs about travel, location, and materials. And you can schedule the workshops very flexibly, right? Because, I don't know, you don't need people to make room for, regardless of their family situation, they don't need babysitters or need to travel somewhere to stay overnight because the workshop is far away, and that way it easily scales. But once again, bad things, time zones, already mentioned it, it's the same for workshops. I think energizers are really important because I'm not sure how you're feeling right now with coronavirus. You're probably staring at your computer screens and having virtual meetings a lot every day. And it's really tiresome, especially if you cannot get up and have a break and move and just look out of the window for a while. And if you have a workshop, probably there's going to be a longer time where you cannot do that. So energizers, just like freshen up the spirits, are very important. But in real life workshops, it's much easier to do energizers because you can do stuff that involves movement. Right now, in front of my camera, my movement range is very limited. So yeah, that's hard. And then, of course, you have the tooling. Zoom here is one of them. But if you want to do a proper remote workshop, you'll probably need something that involves Post-its or brainstorming or whiteboard, a virtual one. So people need to learn that tool that you want to use. And then, of course, on the screen, there are some distractions. You just saw my email pop up probably. Yeah. And then the ugly, I can already feel that right now here. I think probably all of you are muted. Or maybe not, but you're all very quiet. And I feel like if you mute yourself, that's even worse because there's kind of a hurdle to unmute. But even now that you're not muted, it's still a hurdle to just interrupt me, right? To say something. And of course, I know I'm giving a talk here, so you're all listening and that's all good. But still, even when you're having a conversation with several people, I feel that it gets hard to judge, okay, can I interrupt now? Can I say something now? Am I too early, too late? What's about latency, right? So that's always a bit awkward. And then before my remote job, I gave a lot of workshops in my last job. And there it was all real life. So we had a lot of full day workshops, sometimes even design sprints, which lasted for 3 or 4 or 5 days. And that is absolutely impossible in a remote situation. Even a half day of remote workshop is so tough. I cannot recommend it. So I have some pro tips for you, how to probably hopefully make the workshop a success if you want to do one. At first, make people talk. You notice that I'm trying to do that just a tiny little bit, but we don't have a lot of time. So yeah, it's always the risk, right? But try so that people don't say me all the time. Then one thing that I did was just make rooms for multiple people or multiple teams to work simultaneously. In Zoom, there is a branch out function that does the same, but I must admit that I haven't tried it yet. But you can use these tools to break up your groups into teams. And then with Zoom, but with Google, one person can just stay in the main call on mute so that they know when the teamwork is over. Then I've already used the time timer. I can only recommend that you do too because it's really nice and visual, even in a remote setting. You can see here I have a tripod behind me, and then when I work, I just hang my time timer on this so that even when I don't hold it, my coworkers can see it on camera. So yeah, these little MacGyver hacks that you can do to do good virtual workshops. Then plan for enough breaks. That's a no-brainer, but in the remote context, it's even more important just because staring at screens is tiresome. So I think to do about 10 minutes of break per hour. Jan did this perfectly with this call. And it's also a good idea to encourage people to get snacks and drinks. So hereby, I am encouraging you. We have a break very soon. Get snacks and drinks before we come back to the Q&A, because it's always a nice mood lifter. And of course, keep it short. I already mentioned this. Remote workshops are tiresome. So at least in my experience, 3.5 hours feel like the maximum you can do in one day, and then you will just feel dead. So if you can make it shorter, that's even better. And last but not least, use energizers and have fun, because laughing is important. You should use GIFs, memes, and funny videos to just lighten the mood. And after every break, you can also do an energizer. So maybe we can do a quick energizer before we come to the Q&A later after the break. then if you're facilitating a workshop, take it till you make it. I started my first remote workshop and I had no clue about remote workshops and I still did it. So if I can do it, you can do it too. So here are some resources for design thinking methods, business decision and strategy methods, and energizers. And here you can find a link to my slides. Jan can also share this again later. Questions will be answered after the break. And that's it for now, I guess. Thank you for listening.